Hello, hello, beautiful people, mi gente bella. Welcome to another edition of Santana Says, where we talk about everything from Roblox to relationships, everything in between, and the overall journey of life. I'm excited as always to bring you another edition of the show, but also another wonderful guest. So whenever we have the chance to have a conversation and I get to share the couch with someone else, I'm always super excited. But also, here's the thing. So I know y'all been seeing a lot of like women on this stage, and I appreciate that because, you know, as a woman, you know, I'm always going to shout out my fellow, you know what I'm saying, women and all that. But we are going to switch it up. We're going to get some male energy up in here. So I appreciate Edward for switching that up for us and being the first. But here's the thing. So I'm like super pumped and I get to brag. So this is actually one of my babies. Yes, we go way back. So I used to work at this wonderful organization known as Esperanza. And when I was there is actually where I met one of my mentees. And the cool thing is we clearly hit it off and he has not gotten rid of me, y'all. I am still around. So I am like super happy. But of course, I would also love for you to tell the good people more about the story and all that. But I'm super pumped, y'all. So y'all getting a double. You know what I'm saying? Our first male guest, but also somebody that I go way back with. So I am super excited about it. Y'all know me as always. So with that, well, I always say Edward, but if you would love to introduce the wonderful people to who you are, what you do, what brought you, you know what I'm saying, to with us.
Yeah, so my name is Edward Valentin Lugo. I am a Cleveland-based artist. I am currently working as the marketing and communications manager at the Center for Arts Inspired Learning, and I'm just glad to be here on the show.
Whoop, whoop. We are allowed to have you, sir. I know you go by Ed.
Yeah, I
so
go by
that's
Ed.
the thing.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Let's be
Definitely
clear.
go by Ed.
But I always, you know, I always like to extend people's names. So yeah, y'all got that. But also, I think, did you add that you're a graduate of the Cleveland Institute of Art?
Yeah. I also am a 2019 graduate of the Cleveland Institute of Art with a double major in drawing and printmaking.
Yeah, big deal. Yeah, look at that. Little small thing, y'all. I don't think y'all understand. So for those who ain't from Cleveland, because I know we get viewers, and listeners from all over, y'all, Cleveland Institute of Art is super hard to get into. Okay, so in Cleveland, this was a big deal, and like, so for you to even be able to get in there, be considered, but then also graduate, like, I know that wasn't no small thing. So, I mean, could you let the good people know what all it took to even get into that school and like what that experience was even like?
Yeah. I think that journey definitely starts with you and the good people at Esperanza, because I wouldn't have not been able to get into this Cleveland Institute of Art if it was not for the people that I was engaging with at Esperanza Inc. So at least for myself, I think it really started with mentorship at Esperanza. I was a sophomore in high school. So around that time at Esperanza, they're having conversations with us students about what does life look like after high school? What are you thinking about with regards to post-secondary education? What careers are you interested in? And so I naturally had a meeting with a past staff member that worked there at the time with Esperanza called Elaine Suarez. She still goes by Elaine Suarez.
Yeah, shout out to Elaine. Hey, girl. Future guest.
She did a interview with me, an intake, so to speak, and they naturally had an inkling, an interest in the arts. I mean, growing up in Cleveland, I was just like an anime kid. You know, I just play video games, watch anime, grew up watching Naruto. So that was sort of my niche. That was my interest. And there was a staff member that worked at Esperanza called Martinez Garcias, and he was also a graduate of the Cleveland Institute of Art. With a bachelor's in painting, if I remember correctly. And by the time that I got to senior year in high school at Esperanza, Martinez was having a lot of conversations about identity politics. What does it mean to be, at that time, you know, with the majority of the students being of Puerto Rican descent, Black African American descent, and so, you know, he was just sort of asking like the students, you know, what does it mean to be you? What is your history? What place do you have in society and in the community? And, you know, where do you see yourself taking that when you graduate high school and go into college? And he would see me write notes and do doodles in my pad, and so. One time he just was taking a look at some of the comics that I was doing, and he was like, "You think like an artist. You should go to art school." And so that was our first relationship, I think, where he inspired me as a mentor to pursue the arts. Because for the longest, I mean, I was having these conversations about college. I was, with Melissa going to Saturday Academy and visiting these different college campuses, but nothing was really clicking for me, at least career-wise. It's not that I wasn't enjoying or taking away the importance of filling out your FAFSA on time and applying to colleges and universities and getting a good score on your ACT, but I didn't really know what I wanted to go into. Like most students that are graduating high school and are introducing into the world of college and universities and ACT scores, and it can be very scary and daunting. Imposter syndrome can sink in. Am I worthy enough? Can I get in? Will I succeed? A plethora of different things. Leaving family if you're deciding to go, out of state or out of the country. But he pushed me to go to CIA. I worked with him very intensely. Probably the hardest I've ever worked to create a portfolio to get to submit my application for the Cleveland Institute of Art. So to your question, how difficult it is, at least for freshman incoming students, you have to develop a portfolio. I think you had to score a 21 or higher in your ACT with a 3.0 GPA, grade point average or higher.
Yep.
It is a private college institution, not your everyday traditional college or post-secondary institution, in that once you get in, you aren't introduced with your basic prerequisite courses like your maths, your sciences, your psychs. You're more introduced to more of your liberal arts classes like art history, writing and inquiry courses, lots of theory-based courses and classes, things that make you understand and interpret art through a historical and theoretical lens. How historically art is a depiction of our culture and our history, and how has that changed and influenced people from history to present time. So sometimes it could be really convoluted and confusing, because it could go from caveman paintings to Jackson Pollock, and sometimes it makes sense and sometimes it doesn't make sense, but they cram it in, and that's art history class. But that's just one side. Then there is the side of studio work where you are finding your interests in making work ultimately to be put in a gallery setting, and to see how you can have different audiences engage, look at your work, and ultimately make a living off of that. So
whoa.
Yeah, I know I maybe have stepped away a little bit all over the place, but
you was right on exactly what I wanted to touch on. Yep. No, but wow. Okay, so hello, can we kudos to that? Because goodness gracious. So you had to do all that, you know what I'm saying? Figure all that out and then be in this competitive environment too. So you mentioned, that it was this private institution. I also love that. Hello, can we also shout out Martinez? Hey, Martinez.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Because he really is
Come
a
back to Cleveland.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I'm saying? Right. Where you at, playa? But definitely, I agree. It was definitely him fostering those. I remember that when I was there. You know what I mean? I loved that, and shout out to the whole crew, because like we said, Elaine, we see you too, girl. But it was just a great time. We were always cultivating these different kind of conversations. And I remember we've talked about Saturday Academy, y'all, was this college post-secondary program. It was essentially, we would go every Saturday to different colleges and, check them out. And for some, this was the first time they had ever stepped foot on a college campus, maybe had not had that opportunity. For others, it was just a reminder of this is what you can hopefully access and all that. But I always pride myself on the fact that I had the most diverse, group. I loved it. So Esperanza definitely helps a lot of Latino students, which I love, and I'm all about seeing more Latinos advance and take advantage of post-secondary options. But I love that we got a whole little mix of everybody. So we had students like you mentioned, some were just straight up black. You know what I'm saying? We had a couple white students too. Yeah, we had literally the whole little melting pot up in our crew. And so I loved it though, because we would always have different perspectives. So the students, and students are going when you talk about it, they're gonna give it to you straight. You know what I mean? We had some pretty intense conversations, and I love that because like you were saying, if you're already in the place where you're trying to form form your identity, figure out who you are, which is hard to do in high school because, we trying to, I'm still trying to figure out who I am. So let alone in high school, I knew very less about that, what that is. It was great that we saw that from different viewpoints. So, I did love how we were able to do that. But you mentioned, though, that, a lot of them are also from Puerto Rican descent. And again, for those reminder, I'm proud Puerto Rican, what I'm saying, all day, every day. But you were also Puerto Rican, and absolutely, you know what I'm saying? What's up? And so I get to cheat and say, I know that you also got to share a lot when you were at CIA and beyond, about your Puerto Rican identity. How do you feel like, what have you learned about that? You know what I mean? And like, where are you in that, journey with that identity formation?
I at least at CIA, I learned a lot about everything has an intention. I think with art.
Yes.
But also anyone can come up with their own interpretations by what they're seeing. So, there is, the intention of the artist.
Yep.
There's also the opportunity of having a cold read, which a cold read is to just look and interpret artwork without any sort of historical or any sort of theoretical context that you may have when you gaze upon and look at an artwork and you meditate, do whatever it is you want to do.
Right.
That being said, I learned that a lot of things had intentions. And when I was in school, I wanted to know how I can make work that talks about my personal discovery and what it means to be Puerto Rican. For me, that started at the time I met a peer of mine that actually went with me to Lincoln West High School. She also was in conversations with Martinez. She, I think, also was in Esperanza as well. I don't think I remember her participating really heavily in the after school high school program, but I do remember her working over the summer. Dorothy, do you remember Dorothy?
Oh yeah, super. Oh yeah, Dorothy. Oh my God, I was wondering. I was like, who are we talking about?
Dorothy. Yes, I remember
that girl
Dorothy.
done blew up. Shout out to Dorothy if she's listening from Puerto Rico.
If I remember correctly, I think it was Dorothy that introduced me to a book called War Against All Puerto Ricans. I can't remember if it was Dorothy or if it was you. It was one of those. It was either you or Dorothy.
Okay, well, yeah, we're going to shout out to Dorothy because I discovered the War Against Puerto Ricans book as an adult. So, later into my adult years. So, I just got it recently. So, that was probably her.
Yeah.
So, yeah, shout out to her.
I was a freshman, and it wasn't too long after me beginning to read the book that then you and I were talking about Oscar Lopez Rivera, and then we went to was it Spanish Harlem to go protest for his release. And so I was sort of uncovering this sort of history, growing up in school when no one's really talking about Puerto Rican history or what it means to be a colony still of the United States, one of the oldest and long and still standing colonies of the United States. Being born on the island, my parents coming to the U.S. for more what's the word I'm looking for? Access to healthcare and opportunities as well. Mm-hmm. The main was access to healthcare. Yeah. But when I was growing up in school, no one's really talking about what it means to be Puerto Rican. How does that transfer to my work and my experience in the Cleveland Institute of Art? I began reading this book, and I started to make work that is sort of a documentation of what I'm learning. Mm-hmm. From what I'm consuming in this book. And I remember very vividly a critique that I had once I got into my sophomore year into the Cleveland Institute of Art, which first I'll preface in saying your freshman year at CIA, you're doing your foundation courses, your early art history courses, your early designs courses, your early figure drawing courses, electives. You aren't really doing anything in depth with regard to your own personal body of work. You can, but it wasn't really a requirement from our professors. By the time that you're in your sophomore year, once you get accepted into your major, then you can start more intently having those types of conversations and making work and inviting people into your studio and so on and so forth. So I remember a critique that I had, or a critique that I was having in, I can't remember the name of the class, but it was a class with one of me and Aziz's professors. His name was Mike Myers. And it was a piece that I had made. I did like a 32 by 22 watercolor drawing of Puerto Rico. Oh, it was like a geographical sort of like map if you were to like find it on a globe on a flat surface. And then I took a projection and projected the Puerto Rican flag over it. And then I remember reading a passage from War Against All Puerto Ricans as a way to give my peers context, to sort of say, this is the work that this is the book that I'm reading, and this is the piece that was born out of that work. And I remember expecting some level of engagement from which, also to say, CIA is a predominantly white school. I think the main person who was having a genuine conversation with me was my professor. I can't really remember what he said exactly, except I do know and felt the feeling of validation and to keep pursuing this type of work. I do remember just feeling silence and feeling awkward.
Yeah, I remember that day vividly.
Yeah, it just felt very awkward. It felt that, I think, began the sort of domino effect of how I've been received from some professors, from some of my students while at school there, where it just had this sort of awkward battle of students not engaging with the work. Some of them would just say that they can't because they don't have the historical context, or some would just say that it's just not accessible. I remember sometimes being pissed and would make the titles of my work in Spanish and was like, Google translate that shit. You know what I mean?
Right.
But you know, it not to say that the institution at CIA is a horrible institution. I want to say that I've learned a tremendous amount of things about the art world when I was there. But what I did learn and take away is that work does not only operate within the bubble of a Eurocentric lens. What I mean by that is that you don't only have to work and discern through work through the history of white culture, white history, like Jesus on a painting, a centaur maybe ripping the clothing out of a girl and her boobs hanging out. Like, it just doesn't only have to live in that world, or it just doesn't only have to be like an abstract op art painting or just like a cube or a toilet on its side. Like, you can have work where it talks about heavy topics like history or culture or oppression or things other than that. And it doesn't mean that you should box yourself in and to say that you're only this type of artist, or that your work can only be looked at upon on this lens. Like, you can really make anything, and you shouldn't let other people tell you that you can't investigate your interests otherwise, just because they're saying other people can't access it. You can access it. And there are other people, I'm sure, out there that can access your work or are willing to engage with it as well.
Exactly. So please, keep that in mind. But that angelic voice y'all hear in the background, no, if y'all hear that other voice that was giving some support, we also are joined by another one of my mentees and babies because we go way back. This was also another member of the Saturday Academy that we told y'all about. Another member of Esperanza, another person that knew Elaine, but also that knew Martinez, especially Martinez. You know what I'm saying? And so shout out to the Shy, actually. It's actually Chicago. So any Chicago people out there, I know he's currently there, and that's actually where I did a lot of when we were talking about, when I got hip to political prisoners in Puerto Rico and really running to like join much. So like National Boricua, I was so taken aback when I first went to Chicago and saw that. I wanted to be a part of it. So I know that there's such a rich culture there. So shout out to everyone from there. But yes, they're from there. But you, sir, I would love for you to tell the good people, who are you? A little bit about you. I know you also went to the Cleveland Institute of Art, so we gave the good people some background on that. But who are you, and how was your experience there?
Well, my name is Aziz Muhammad. Right now, I'm a visual artist, and man, it's been quite a journey. I would consider myself a mixed media artist. I work in several different mediums right now.
Absolutely.
I'm in my own professional practice, and I'm working as a resident artist and a studio manager at the Verizon Learning Center at the Earl B. Turner Rec Center. Life is crazy, and it is hectic. I literally just came from over there from hosting the third installment in a 3-part series of community meetings surrounded around how we can use our lyrics and our music to empower ourselves, empower our communities, and re-examine how we can use our lyrics to talk about the negative and the positive things that we see in our community and transmute that energy into something that we want to hear.
Yes, let's go.
That it was a lot of energy. It was cool.
Yep.
Hoping I would be here earlier, but it's cool.
Oh no, we'll take you still. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate it.
You're fired.
right. Oh man, but doing all that.
Yes, doing it's a full body experience. It's constantly. It's not just you're doing your job. You're
Right.
The kids, because I'm working with kids from the community.
Yep.
At the center, we're doing community-based projects. I'm helping entrepreneurs with their logos, with their graphic design, clothing lines. We're helping the children develop entrepreneurial businesses that they're actually making money off of. Like,
Right.
just sitting down, talking with them, like, hey, I have 3 stipulations. I would tell them it can be no illegal activity. They have to have a set of goals, and then they have to have an end or a set of steps to reach their end goal. So that was my criteria. And now, there's a lot of kids who have their own businesses right now. But for myself, I could definitely attest to what you were talking about, Edward, and CIA. Like, something I actually went back and I watched the old anxiety video. And for some context for our viewers at home,
If I watched that video, it would probably make me feel cringe.
yeah, I cringed.
Just like angsty teens making art.
But we was hollering though, bruh.
Yeah.
We was really spitting. So me and Ed collaborated on this video piece. It was a drawing, painting, and video piece that we titled Anxiety. And basically we were having part of this conversation, from what I can hear, talking about the gravity of the topics that we're discussing, our history, our culture, another part of American history that we don't recognize as American history.
Oh yes.
The enslavement of our people, how our culture has been replaced and taken away from us, how we've had our identity replaced by some sort of subsequent subsidy, and had all of our heritage, our culture, our religion, our way of life, the way we interact with each other, the way we eat, the way we dress, all these things have been taken away from us, commodified, and reproduced in a way that they've been essentialized and extracted their essence from. So we're basically the same way they do Domino sugar.
Right.
How they take the raw sugar cane and they extract it and they bleach it down and they turn it into white confection or whatever, which is just a couple molecules away from cocaine. It's the same thing. They do the same thing with our melanin. They do the same thing with our history and our culture. And that was the main topic of the anxiety piece. So we had made a series of drawings, and it all started with a big drawing where we drew a seed, and the roots had spread out from the seed. But what had bloomed from the seed was just the full blunt of our experience in America as a person of color, as a Black person, as being Puerto Rican, like everything we're experiencing. So, and Ed, I remember that critique, and you're right, everyone was silent. And a lot of the times whenever we would get up there, people just expected us to just get up there and tell them everything. And it's like, what are we really, is this really a discussion? Is this really a engrossing conversation if we're just going to sit up there and tell you everything that we're talking about? Like, there was no participation. And another thing that a lot of our white peers and professors as well were saying is that they felt like they didn't have any access to the work. And it's like, if there's a lot of artwork that I've seen that is Eurocentric, that I feel like I don't have access, or I could say I don't have access to, but all I have to do is just do a little research.
Right now.
And also, I think, me personally, I feel like that was an excuse, because even if you don't have the original context of what's going on, you know, we still have eyeballs, we still have ears.
You can still discern what you're saying, and that's what they teach us at the very beginning here when I was talking about your art history classes. Like, how do you break art down? Like, what do you see? You know, how does that make you feel? What, so that there, it's like, it's to say, like, you could still have or come up with your own interpretation of the work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Exactly. In fact, and we would encourage that, because at the end of the day, you know, me and Ed can sit up here and talk about whatever artwork is about till we're blue in the face. But at the end of the day, you know, all of our audience, our viewers, our community, just everybody on the whole planet has their own unique perspective, and someone's always going to see something different.
Absolutely.
In your artwork, and that's the beauty of it. So that's something that I felt like I agree with you, Ed. I felt like that was lacking in a lot of our discussions when we would talk about things such as living in a diaspora. living as a nation within a nation. That was what a lot of my artwork was talking about. But specifically, when I was in CIA, I was talking about the effects of the effects of one's environment on your psyche. So I'm from East Cleveland, so directly referencing the effect of my environment in East Cleveland. What effect does that have on the residents thereof? And then how does that produce our behaviors? And ultimately, how does that produce a culture that's surrounded around negligence, derelict living conditions, violence, self-violence,
Absolutely,
and everything else under the sun that you can imagine in a low-income community. And I would get the same silence. So it was not to my surprise or anything, but
I think it probably comes from a place where a majority of our white peers, maybe even some of our professors, just didn't know how to just, I don't know, maybe be human and have a conversation. I think maybe a lot of the times they were just tiptoeing around. How do I say this and not sound racist?
Yeah, and not get canceled. I think that was like their big,
how do I say what I want to say without sounding racist or sounding stupid?
Or sounding, that was their main thing. They would say, I just didn't say anything because I didn't want to sound ignorant. But the irony of that is that you'll remain ignorant until you speak up. So
let's go. Yes.
For real.
Absolutely. Ooh, and I was going to say that too. I remember when I came, y'all, and I had to actually come in, stepped in on Mama Bear, let's go. God. But I was upset because I had heard some of the similar critiques, you all, and especially as a fellow Puerto Rican, I was definitely thinking this is clear to me. I can see what was going on there. And it was interesting because I think they wanted you to be more clear, I guess, with what exactly Puerto Rico is. But I was like, I'm sorry, if we actually look at the history of Puerto Rico, it is confusing as hell. So it is already not clear exactly where it stands. It is in a currently very, limbo place. It's not free. It's supposed to be free, but it's not. It's a colony, but it's supposed to be its own independent territory. It's just,
we can't vote for president of the United States, but
you still got to follow whatever the president says.
But you can still fight in the wars.
Yeah, what's good? Exactly, how that's working. Yeah, so just slightly confusing. Exactly, that part. So I definitely saw that, but I thought it was interesting that, I remember adding that in, but being like, wow, am I the only one talking about this? Because it felt like that. I was like, so that silence, like you said, was there, but it was also very loud. And so for y'all to have experienced that the whole time, I can only imagine what that was even like for you both.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a couple, you guys, Ed, and Ed, you remember more than I. There's been a couple times where I've blacked out. At a certain point, I'm like, okay, no. Right. I'm running on -3 hours of sleep.
Right.
I'm not finna sit here and just, just sit through this torture where people are just not going to say nothing. But then when they can come up and they can talk about something that's not really related to that, and I ain't knocking them or nothing, it's just something that's more, it could be more related to their process or something more related to a personal investigation of material or environmental stuff. I'm down for all of that. Yes. Oh my goodness.
Or memes.
Yes, memes, bro. We really sitting here talk if that's what it's gonna be. Okay, for sure. But for real, bro. Y'all, we got more discourse about Drake memes that we can talking about the history.
There was more conversation. Yeah.
Or talking about our environments conditioning us to being enslaved to a certain way of life that makes huge corporations big. It's just a continuation of slavery.
Oh yeah.
So why are you can see the imbalance in the energy given to each conversation, and what Edward is saying is one part of it is feeling like they're not equipped for a conversation like that, because that's not
absolutely.
I wouldn't say that that's not part of our experience, because that's a part of everyone's experience, directly or indirectly,
absolutely,
whether we know it or not. But not being exposed to that every day, and also not caring.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that part. And I just feel too, what I really appreciate about what you mentioned, because that's also kind of what the podcast is like we just try to have different conversations. And I appreciate you mentioning that it's more helpful if we do have the conversation. You know what I'm saying? So I think I agree with everything you pointed out. I think that we shy away from them because they are difficult to have. We don't know how exactly to enter the space, like, or others feel that way. And I just feel like, they do think they're going to make a mistake versus like, I actually would have preferred that you tried. I actually would have applauded your effort. And if you don't know, why don't you just ask? Like ask questions, like get to know more. So like, I think we think that, by doing that, we're not realizing the missed opportunities to just simply learn, and to connect more with others. And like, yeah, maybe you don't. Like maybe the things we just talked about right now, some people are like, what? That's the first time I heard that. Like, so, I have no idea how I would, talk about that, but start today, Like, and engage someone. And the thing is too, clearly you both are very generous with what you've done. Like, I don't get the impression that you wouldn't be willing to share information if given that chance.
I'd be honored to share.
Yes, and do it. Yes. And what I love too, though, is that as artists, though, I love what you've already shared about what the art has done. So there's clearly been messages that you've been trying to communicate, you know what I mean? And things that you've done. And it is Mental Health Awareness Month still. And so like, I definitely see a lot of, interesting connections with, how we can help others with mental health. And I'm just curious too, has it been therapeutic for you just engaging in art? Like, how has that been like? So yes, either one.
Yes. I feel like, okay, cool.
Yes.
I think in my senior year for that big mural piece that you saw.
Yes, absolutely.
Art as a tool for helping me with struggles that I was facing, just bettering my mental health was probably, I couldn't have done it. My body of work, I needed it.
Yeah, definitely.
The work, the making, the art, the process of art making became a release from a lot of the things that I was making. To give a little bit more context, I did a mural piece. I can't really remember the size of this, but
Huge.
It was like 32 by 22 pieces of paper, all assembled together to make one. Yeah, I don't know what that is.
400 inches.
Something.
Big.
It was
huge.
big. It was big.
Right.
But it was a bunch of drawing pieces that assembled together made a landscape painting of Jauco, where I was born. And it showed the passing of Hurricane Irma and Maria. And with that, I was trying to really capture the sort of how beautiful hurricanes are, but how scary they are at the same time. How this was a sort of a centrifugal force of nature that is been depicted in Puerto Rico's history through tainoglyphs like the hurricane, and how this is sort of like a thing that is just like, you can't have a conversation about Puerto Rico without having conversations and the sort of mythology of hurricanes. It was just, you can't have it. It's just one and the same. But at the same time, it was sort of like, I think when I was making that piece, I was having more fun with the process than about the research. It was me listening to jazz music, the sort of way that saxophone players like John Coltrane or Kamasi Washington can sort of improvise and let themselves go.
Yes.
It's like they don't know where they're going to end that next beat. And in that way, and it was chaotic, but then they sort of found their way home. And with me listening to that, I turned to ink block paintings, wetting the paper and dipping the ink just ever so slightly to where the ink just takes hold. And now I have completely relinquished all control, because now I'm at the mercy of the ink, just like people are at the mercy of this hurricane. And it's like then drawing it, and it became sort of I don't know the word for it. There's like a specific word, but it's just like a repetitive symbol that I just kept drawing over and over again. It became a motif. And it helped me at a time when these hurricanes were passing and I had lost all communication and contact with my family.
Wow.
And it was months before we were able to have a phone call with them. And it was the fear of, if we ever got a phone call, is it them or is it someone telling us that they passed away? It was that delicate balance, and the work became, my way of sort of dealing and talking about those emotions, at least for me in BFA. For now, I think the work has sort of the history and the research sort of took a back seat. I don't think that I'm trying to at least focus on trying to over explain myself. It became more just like, let's just play. Because I think that's probably one of the things that I've forgotten to do while I was at CIA, to make work for fun. I think I was leaning on that towards my senior year, though I may not have known that so much, but it became more just like play with these colors, put this pink with the cyan blue, draw these little characters, and it became a release for me.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Same for you, Aziz, or how was that?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I remember when you showed me how to do those ink blots.
Oh man, fun times.
I still be doing them. Like, that changed the game. Yeah, absolutely. Like, the whole experience, just becoming involved. Well, I'm sorry. What was the question?
Yeah, well, the mental health piece, like if it's also therapeutic for you actually to participate in art.
It's like 90%.
There you
therapy.
go.
Like, the artwork is the other 10%. Like, that's what you get out of it. Like, the whole process, and like the importance of creating art with community too.
Right.
Like, we had each other like that. You know, as an artist, ultimately you're gonna go down whatever path that you do with your artistic practice, your focus, and what you want to talk about in your work. But to have community, to have people there who can actually relate to what you're talking about. Like, I don't know if you've ever had a conversation with somebody where you're talking to them and you're saying cohesive words and your sentences are complete, and they're just like, and they totally disregard what. That's happened to me so many times. Yeah, it's still happening now to this day. Everett has seen it firsthand.
Right.
So to be able to have that community and
it's like very like Twilight Zone almost.
Yeah, right. Like, are we? I literally, I'm like, are we watching a movie right now? Like, is this really happening? Like, did I just really like? So yeah, absolutely. And the therapy of being able to allow yourself that play, and to allow yourself to be a beginner and be okay with being a beginner and not stigmatize your failure.
Right.
Is so important, and it's like the key thing to making artwork for me personally. Because if you just keep cranking out art to satisfy other people and you're not nourishing your soul, then you're not. What are you really making? Is that something that you can feel invested in? And if I was ever got to a point like that when I was in school, I stopped and I take a step back and I'm like, this is not making me happy. People would want me to render. Like, realistically, they would want me to make paintings that were super highly rendered, super realistic. But I'm like, I don't really feel like doing that. Like, I can do it. Me and Ed can do it. Everybody can do it. But like, not everybody, but me and Ed are capable of doing that. It's just, I want to examine something that speaks to me.
Of course.
That speaks to your heart and nourishes your soul. So I say, yeah, absolutely. Like, that was the main thing that was getting me through, and it's not just the artwork as well. It's like I said, it's building community, having people who you can talk your ideas over with, because you can't just live on a rock on an island by yourself. That's not how the world works.
It's not.
Everything we do is connected, everything. That part. The clothes that we're wearing right now, but someone built this probably like on the other side of this planet, and or the camera that's recorded, like everything is connected. And that's actually something that I learned at CIA, that to not live in a bubble. Because I think something they tried to encourage us to think is that they would always say, a lot of our professors would always say, before you get into the real world. And I'm like, no, this is the real world. It's always been the real world.
Exactly. We live in it right now.
Yeah,
exactly. So yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
To make artwork freely was definitely something that boosted, helped maintain my mental health, and it was therapeutic the whole way through.
I love it. Yeah. And okay, so can y'all see why I'm so proud of my babies? Doing the thing. And all that. And I was gonna let you add. I was also gonna say though, another, last final thought that I was wondering that you all can share is, and with that being said, what would you like your art to create in the future? Like, what are you hoping? Like, how would you like to touch people later? Like, I know that's what it did for you before, but like, how, what would you like it to do for you later on?
I mean, yeah, I definitely want my artwork to facilitate discussions, conversations that are stigmatized about our mental health, and to be able to create safe spaces where people can talk about, specifically people of color who don't have safe spaces to talk about things that are going on in our lives that are so serious, but also stigmatized, like our mental health, or being victims of abuse, or being in situations, relationships where you're being manipulated, like just everything, anything that you can imagine that is a stigmatized conversation. Because a lot of the times we notice in Black and brown families, when we have issues like this, things get swept under the rug.
Right.
And then we end up carrying these traumas with us throughout our whole life. And I'm starting to see that a lot of people in our generation, like we're a lot of the first in our generation to try to break those cycles and break those curses, because we're relearning how to live. We're relearning how to exist, and we're breaking free of having been enslaved for 500 years.
Right.
So that's the way I
No
want.
small feet.
Ain't that crazy?
Right. Exactly.
And it's big shoes to fill. So,
yeah. Amen.
So that's what I want my artwork to do, to facilitate those conversations and to also promote love for ourselves, Black and brown love, for us to
Yes.
shake that hate off,
Always. What about for you, Ed?
Yeah. I honestly really don't know. I think that I know that career-wise, I still want to make work. I still want to make art.
Yep.
But I think that I actually want to go into art therapy. Now, I know that while I was at TI, I think the point of it is to teach you how to make work in a sort of a way to make a living off of it, engage with galleries, sell work. But I don't know if that is where my heart is at. I don't know if my heart is going to galleries and that being my only source of income. I think that for me, I want to make work that can help heal people, I think. Yes. I don't know if that's through color. I mean, quite recently I had a show at the Beck Center for the Arts, and I was Ed Gallagher. I think he was the curator for that show. But he had approached me during the opening of the show, where he had said a young lady had just purchased one of my artworks, and had a very visceral, emotional response to it. I mean, the young lady was crying, and she said that she saw the work and she just had a very, very, just like a tough time before she had got to the gallery, and it helped her sort of feel better. And that to me was more important than selling the work. And I think that I want to be more a facilitator of people to dig deeply into their psyche and into their subconscious, and use art as a tool to deconstruct some of that, peel the onion back, do the work that needs to be done internally, so that they can live much more fruitful and happier lives. And that to me is where I want to go with my work. And if my work just does that, then fine. But I more want to be the guide. To be honest, that's really what fires me up more. It's tell me about yourself. What's happening? Draw that for me. It doesn't have to be a drawing. It could be a poem. It could be a song. It could be anything. A tap dance. Anything. And how do we start to parse these pieces out and build a much more like a clearer portrait of who you think you are and what you can be, with these different things that are within you. And so,
Oof, goodness gracious. I love that.
So that's what I want.
Yes. Yes, I love it. And then, I mean, and I agree, because I feel like, especially with everything that you mentioned, like igniting your passions and also connecting that to your purpose and just all of those things and everything you mentioned too. You didn't mention all the topics on the show, so I appreciate that. But like, it's true. Like, I feel like there's so much value to that, and being able to like dive deeper into that. But like, art is an incredible way to do it, and knowing that we all possess and we all have creative like energy. I know some people are like, no, art, I can't do that, or like, I don't know how to tap into that. But it's like, it's also not realizing that we all have strengths, you know, and it's just a matter of bringing that out. And we all have the ability to express ourselves in one way or another. So it's really just tapping into that and bringing that out further. And I just feel like, as y'all can see, this is why I could talk to them all day, every day. You know what I'm saying? And we actually do. We always have our little meetups, which I love. I love when y'all reach out like it's time, y'all, for dinner. Check in, you know what I'm saying? We're going to have our little meal. We're going to do that after this. No. Exactly, and all that. But I mean, I could keep y'all all day. I know we on limited time, so I just want to make sure that could you also let the good people, and of course y'all just gonna have to come back, so just know that, you know what I'm saying, we're gonna have to have more conversations. But I also want to emphasize that, as I mentioned, I love seeing this, right? Like students that I got to have some impact on, and now they're doing this incredible work. Like y'all don't understand that as educators, this is all we want to see. You know what I'm saying? It's just this kind of success story, and knowing that they're doing things that they love to do, you know what I mean? And that they are providing such an impact, because you get to see that, like, but to see them bring it out and them see them for themselves, that's like everything. You know what I mean? To me, I also love that y'all were the first males on the show. So, you know, shout out to that. And y'all heard from males that like mental health is important. You know what I'm saying? So this isn't just me as a woman saying that, you know, you're hearing that from you all. And so if you had any last advice before you tell the good people how to find you, what little tidbit would you want to share with the good people?
Don't be ashamed of sleeping.
What? Exactly. Get them naps in.
Say that.
Or resting.
Ooh, yes.
Your heart is not for rent or for sale or for free. Your energy is precious. Treat it so.
Come on. All right. Words of wisdom. Listen here. And if people would like to, you know, find you, especially healer over here, and as well as the relationship builder, but also like guru of all these things that you do, if people wanted to connect, how could they reach out to y'all?
You first.
I am on Instagram.
Follow. No.
But y'all should come down to the Early Turner Rec Center and check out the Verizon Learning Center. That's where I'm stationed at.
Nice.
And yeah, that our whole focus there is to build community, to help people understand how to use STEM technology, and to empower ourselves through that technology, start businesses, and just for it to be a safe space for us to build community and talk to each other in like a loving manner. It's in the heart of a community that has so many different issues and things that we know we can change if we just band together. So
come on. Absolutely. Yes.
Pull up.
Yes. And if you ain't local, look it up. You know what I'm saying? Support, donate. You know what I mean? Do that. What about you, sir?
So you can follow me on Instagram. It's local art healer _ all together, all lowercase. And yeah, that's where you can find me. I post all my work there. Definitely check out the stories, because that's usually where I feel like I try to have a little bit of fun, where I combine the work with some music that I'm listening to that influences the work. That's always been a part of the process. So it's really cool to watch the stories and look at the artwork as well.
Do it.
Yeah.
And yes, and I appreciate you as always for tuning in, for y'all, for being on. Come on now.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, absolutely. And so yeah, definitely tap in, y'all. Cause I mean, like I said, this is super important, but also if it sparked anything for you, if you were like, yes, this is like reminding me why I need to tap more into that, not only your mental health, but also your art, y'all. You know what I mean? Definitely do not let that get neglected. You know, with all the things that we're doing, we already live in a world where we don't get a chance to do that freely all the time. So like, you know, this is your reminder, dust that off. You know what I'm saying? Get that back out, get that canvas out. You know what I'm saying? That maybe you hadn't, and again, or whatever it may look like. Maybe it's music for you, like you mentioned, or writing something down. Get the journal that you haven't touched in a couple months, whatever it may be. But definitely tap in and continue to rock with us. And I appreciate you for rocking with us with all those things and continuing with the conversations, which we're going to continue to have. Y'all got ideas? Reach out to any of us. But thank you as always for tuning in and being part. Thank you.